All right, so this next video is about presentational aids, or you hear me refer to it a lot as visual aids. But really presentational aids is probably more accurate since not all aids necessarily have to be visual. So for your informative speech, you are going to need to show your audience, me, the camera. You're going to have to use at least 3 or more visual aids, which is, we'll go over that when we go over the directions of the speech, but you'll notice that it specifically says at least 3 or more. So a visual aid or a presentational aid can be anything that's visual or anything that's auditory, because these are going to help make an important impact on your audience tying content to memory aid, especially the difficult information, because these visual aids are not only supposed to help you remember, but they're also supposed to help you teach, and they're there to help you teach that content that's difficult for us to retain verbally. All right, so visual aids can be actual tangible objects. If you're going to show a model or a picture or a drawing or a map, chart, or graph for that matter, you need to put your visual aid up on a presentational software. So something like Screencast, something like Zoom, or something like a PowerPoint or Google Slides. Doing that, I am going to, if you look back on Eagle where you got this lecture, the page, I'm linking you back to those directions in the welcome letter that talk about how you're going to show your visual aids back to me. So we made a video about how to project screencast, and you can use your webcam and screencast at the same time. Zoom also offers those capabilities, and I've also seen students project their computer, their laptop onto a TV, and then they're recording from their phone, or they're having a family member record. So you need to make sure that I can see it. Okay, so if I can't see it, then this is something you want to problem shoot before you start to record. So this is why I stress the idea of practicing, because when you practice, you'll know if your visual aid is visual or not. Okay, so I will link that back underneath this video so you know exactly what I'm talking about. I wish I was cool enough to like put the link in here, and maybe I will be able to figure that out, but we'll see. I can certainly try to have it be one of those interactive videos, but I'm just not. I'm just that elder millennial who's just trying. So we'll see. All right. So in addition to using maps, charts, or graphs, you can also use audio. So if you were playing some sort of song or we were listening to some sort of news clip, you can also do that. Or you can also show us some sort of video. Keep in mind that the audio or the visual can only be 30 seconds. And the reason that is because I don't want it taken away from your speaking time. You are important, and so are the visual aids. But again, if we're in 6 to 8 minute speech, if we're having 3 minutes of visual aids, well, that's just becoming a problem. It's great for you, I'm sure, but not so good for your grade. So make sure that they're only 30 seconds. And you can break those into, 2 15-second clips, 3 10-second clips, however it may be. You're obviously not going to do handouts. One, because we are in a pandemic and who are you giving it to? But 2, handouts, if we were in the classroom or you were in this presentation somewhere else, a handout would be distracting. So if you were going to do a handout, and handouts are typically more used for persuasive speech, and that's because you want the audience to walk away with that information. But if you passed it out during your speech, we're going to be focusing on that handout and not on you. And I really want the focus to be on you because you're the speaker. So the visual aid must help your audience better understand a concept. So keep that in mind. It is there to help you be entertaining, but it's also there to help you remain professional, build your credibility and your competency by helping to teach your audience. So keep that in mind. There at the bottom, that last asterisk talks about use the sandwich method when using a PowerPoint. And what that means is that you sandwich your visual slides in between blank slides. So we'll do an example next. And of course, my visual aid's not working. All right, so when I am speaking and I'm in front of the camera, in front of the audience, I'm going to have a blank slide behind me. That way, the focus is on me, the audience is paying attention to my verbals, my content, my nonverbals, the focus is on the speaker. When I'm ready to use a visual aid and I'm ready to help my audience understand the content that I'm saying verbally, I'm going to bring up my visual aid. I'm going to talk about what is in the visual aid. I'm going to explain what it is we're seeing, why it is that we're seeing. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. That way the focus is back on me, because if I were to leave a visual aid up behind me, the audience is just focusing on those pictures, on what those numbers mean, what those charts mean, what's happening in the video, whatever it may be on the screen behind me, and they're not focusing so much on the speaker. So they're missing what's coming out of my mouth. So you want to make sure that when you're not using your visual aid, there's a blank slide behind you. And that's called sandwich method. That's sandwiching your visual aids in between blank slides. Okay. So you need to have these at least 3 visual aids, and these 3 visual aids do not count as a part of your 5 sources, 5 different sources for your 5 oral citations. They're in addition to, and you also want to make sure, obviously, that you're going back to double check that oral citation guide, which I can also provide another link to, but I believe it's also linked in the assignment, to make sure that you're correctly orally citing those hopefully very up-to-date sources and very credible sources, since you are trying to teach us about something and build your own competency and credibility for the audience. So your visual aids do not count as a part of those 5 sources. All right, so another way to be memorable in addition to visual aids is how you choose to use your words. So our language skills are becoming more important. So how can we make an impact with your choice of words? Just by looking at the 3 people that are on the screen, something that immediately ties or that pops into my head is the use of repetition with words, because repetition can be really powerful. Not only is this something you want to keep in mind for your informative speech, but you also want to keep this in mind as you move forward into your persuasive speech. All right, so when you are thinking about words and how to use words effectively, you want to make sure that you're using really specific, concrete words. So what does that mean? Concrete words are words that tie to the senses. So basically, you should be able to paint me a picture with your words, being very descriptive. I should be able to close my eyes and picture exactly what it is that you are talking about with your word choice. So words that appeal to the senses. So think about what the senses are and what words you could use to best describe what it is that you're talking about. Use simple words. So you want to make sure that your vocab matches the level of your listener. Okay, you don't want to use vocab that's over our heads, because then we're going to create this internal noise, this internal distraction. We're asking ourselves questions. What do they mean? What are they talking about? And we've lost you. Okay, because you've already jumped ahead while we're trying to process these questions. You also don't want to use information or vocab that's too simple, because some audience members might feel offended or they might feel bored. So you want to make sure that you match your vocab to the level of your listener. And then also pops down to this last one. I'll just kind of tie these together. No jargon. That also has to do with the vocab. So you don't want to use words that are only understood by a small group of people. And that's what jargon means. It's only understood by a particular group. So if you are a medical student, you don't want to be using medical terminology that we don't understand or jargon that we don't understand. If you're a gamer, you don't want to be using information or words that we don't understand. I see that one happen often. You just want to make sure that you're using information that everybody on the same level can understand. Okay? Understand denotation and connotation of words. What does that mean? A simple way to remember denotation is the alliteration that I'm about to give you. So denotation is the dictionary definition of the word. So if you open up the dictionary and you look up the word home, you're going to find a house, a residence, a place where one lives. Okay, so that's the basic definition of the word home, denotation. Okay, connotation is the emotional tie to the word, or the emotional sense that is given when someone hears the word. So the denotation and the connotation of the word home can be very different. Denotation is the definition. Connotation of the word home, what emotion do you feel when someone says home? That's different for everybody. So for me, it changes all the time too. So like for me, if you would have asked me a year and a half ago what the word home meant, I was relaxation and, family and fun and just chill and comfort. Now, being in this pandemic where I have been home for a year, with my sweet, wonderful kiddos who have now are 5 and 4, who are home with me every day, and I'm teaching from home and I'm trying to keep my sanity just like the rest of you. Home is a little different, right? So home is a little chaotic, a little stressful, but it still has all the good positive, connotations that are tied to it. Comfort and family and, well, friends, who remembers those during this pandemic, but there's still positive and there's negative emotional ties to it. So it just depends. It changes for every person. And then how else can we use words effectively? Like I started this, you can use repetition. Repetition is a great rhetorical device. It helps your audience catch the emphasis that you're trying to make. And it can also have a great emotional tie to it because repetition can also bring out a little bit of pathos from your audience. So repetition is a great way. Definitely probably more effective in persuasive speaking with repetition if you're trying to pull emotion out, but repetition can also be effective in informative or in teaching if you want us to, say, remember a statistic or you want us to remember something really important. So think about all those ways that you can be effective with word choices. Really specific, descriptive words. Everyone's vocab is the same. Understanding the denotation is important to learning. Connotation is important to the emotional tie. Repetition is important for emphasis. Respectful language, obviously no swearing, because that's just going to impact your credibility. Slang is only understood by a certain amount of people, and so is jargon. So if you use slang and use jargon, not everyone is going to be on the same page as you. All right. Another way to be memorable is your use of transitions. So you know that from the introductory speech, that basic foundation that I gave you, for oral transitions is, making sure you're signposting and you're using bridges and you're using connecting transitions. We know that those oral transitions are really important, or hopefully you do, because it is almost one of the number one skills for this particular course. But another way to show your audience that you are transitioning is thinking about your nonverbal. So not only is your verbals becoming more important, your nonverbals are becoming more important. How do we do nonverbals in terms of transitioning? It's using the space that you have. Now, I know the space is different because we're not in a classroom, but you still have a space in front of your camera that you can use to your advantage to show your audience that you are a walking, talking tour guide. So if you can, start your speech in the middle of your camera. Okay? You're in the center. When you're going to your first main point, maybe move to the right. Okay? When you're done with your first main point, switch to the other side of the screen and be on the left, and then you can conclude where you started. It's kind of like a triangle. It's going to look a little different since you're not in front of the classroom, but a good way to just think about transitions, or a good way to think about nonverbals is to move with purpose and make motivated movements. So make sure that your hand gestures match the message that's coming out of your mouth. Okay? Or if you don't feel comfortable using walking transitions, just make sure that you use motivated movements. You're not pacing, you're not fidgeting, your movements have purpose, which is why I really think it's simple to switch from left to right. Your first main point is on the right side, second main point is on the left side, conclude in the middle. It's very simple, it's a triangle. It'll be very easy for you, but also easy for your audience to understand you. So think about those nonverbal choices. That's also going to help your audience stay engaged, stay entertained. It's a way to be memorable. There is nothing more boring than watching a professor teach from sitting from behind a chair or behind a desk. What are you doing? Get up and move around and be engaging. And I miss the classroom so much. So that is a way that you can do it and be engaging and entertaining, even in the comfort of your own home. So give it a whirl. It's not going to hurt you unless you trip. Please don't. You guys will be good. But think about those nonverbal choices. All right, I'm going to end the video here, and we're going to talk about types of informative speeches and go into how organizational patterns can change. So stay tuned for video number 3. And again, this video was about visual aids. I'm going to link the description, or I'm going to link the how to project your visual aids using screencast, using Zoom, and uploading it to YouTube, and ways to be memorable, thinking about language, thinking about nonverbals, and stay tuned for video number 3.